Now, as we get into the final 10 minutes of this episode 178, quickly, we're just going to be able to finish up the news purge and not get into foodworldorder.com and cyberspacewar.com. We got to get to now the latest Obama-Saya updates, where we hop to another one from Paul Joseph Watson, where, as we've already noted, top Clinton official says only a terror attack can save Obama. Former senior advisor to President Bill Clinton says the only thing which can rescue Barack Obama's increasingly tenuous grip on power as his approval figures continue to plunge is a terror attack on the scale of Oklahoma City or 9/11. Another startling reminder that such events only ever serve to benefit those in authority. Buried in a Financial Times article, Financial Times, of course, being one of the main mouthpieces to the elites and movers and shakers, buried in an FT article about Obama's quote-unquote growing credibility crisis and fears on behalf of Democrats that they could lose not only the White House but also the Senate to Republicans, Robert Shapiro makes it clear that Obama is relying on an October surprise in the form of a terror attack to rescue his presidency. Quote, "The bottom line here is that Americans don't believe in President Obama's leadership. He has to find some way between now and November of demonstrating that he is a leader who can command confidence, and short of a 9/11 event or an Oklahoma City bombing, I can't think of how he could do that." End quote. That article is linked up for you. Financial Times doesn't like to give their full articles, but as we always reference, save your articles. Every article linked up on MediaMonarchy.com I have saved as a PDF. I recommend you do the same with your media outlets because, again, it can go down the memory hole in a second. We also note that Bilderberg-connected corporate media mogul Mort Zuckerman admitted that he writes Obama's speech for him.
Well, I voted for Obama. I, in fact, helped write one of his speeches. We endorsed Obama.
Which speech?
I'd rather not go into that for the moment, but
get a lot of applause.
Not from the people I hope it would applause.
So there he notes he doesn't want to get into which speech he wrote for Obama-Saya. Not getting into all those other connections of who writes what and who came from where, but we also note from allgov.com, and this sources back, I believe, to something on Huffington Post, where they note that Obama is more like Reagan than FDR. And they note, I believe, his talk about being against big government, his talk about this supposed mythical free market that exists, and the massive increase in military spending. Explain that one away, Obama-Saya. Governors voice grave concerns on immigration. This story from the New York Times features quite prominently the aforementioned soon-to-be former governor of West Virginia, Joe Manchin, because he's one of the heads of this Governors Association, as again, the immigration meme, which of course is just being used for the greater scheme, and of course to get us all to tear each other apart. We have posted up from the Wall Street Journal, West Virginia governor expects to fill Byrd's seat by Sunday, as we noted at the top of the show, and it was even news to me. He's now appointed a guy named Goodwin, I believe. So more on that from the moves going on in my home state of West Virginia. We have... I skipped it. And there is a video report from the Associated Press. Little Obama movie opens in Indonesia. And again, we're not going to get into all of that. Ex-Clinton fundraiser, speaking of the Clintons, Hassan Namazi gets 12 years in prison. And all the other criminal cabinets and apostles of war connected to the current Obama-Saya Wall Street puppet and the previous Wall Street military-industrial CFR skull and bones connected puppet. Darth Cheney, had a heart device implanted. More on that from Raw Story. And Napolitano, not Homeland Security, but the legal analyst over on Faux News, correctly noted that Bush should have been indicted. And now we get to our Oregon oddities. This coming from KGW.com. Zombies crash on I-84 in Portland, where the sheriff noted that everyone is alive despite being undead. There were folks on their way to a zombie costume party. They were in a car crash. So, of course, it confused the hell out of the first responders and people who saw. 87-year-old Oregon woman killed after taser. Turns out she only had a pellet gun, and she had heart trouble, so of course she died instantly with the new, less than lethal tasers that our police now use at the drop of a hat. When they used to just maybe subdue you, now they tase you, and instead of tasing you, they'll just shoot you. Our last Oregon note, Portland Mayor Sam Adams pledges ban on plastic grocery bags. Again, ban everything. Do I support plastic bags? No. Do I need a law outlawing it? I don't think so. Be the change you want to see in the world. Every law just makes a new criminal. Again, that's whole other episodes unto themselves. Lastly, the War Whores notes on this 7:15 News Purge for the crash years. Requiem for the anti-war movement. This from Cindy Sheehan's soapbox. Remember anti-war? We used to have that in the fake left-right paradigm, but now we don't. Did we hit the story last week? I don't recall. It's all a swirl. From WeLoveCostaRica.com, 46 U.S. warships plus 7,000 U.S. Marines en route to Costa Rica? ? IDF officer indicted on charges of sexually harassing thousands of teenage girls. More on that from Haaretz. Google glitch sends Marines calls to a Washington man, getting calls for the Marines on his phone. And lastly, from ctbto.org, 2,053 nuclear explosions conducted from 1945 to 1998. That is a sort of video art installation dissertation from, I believe, a Japanese scientist and artist. And that's what we're living in. So quickly now, as I said, you're going to have to go to foodworldorder.com and cyberspacewar.com for the latest updates there on our tracked and traced and data-based asses on the Chinese airport that closed after a fiery UFO was spotted over the city. But of course, state media said, well, it was actually a military intelligence-connected situation with the states, and we don't really want to talk about it. 46,000 dairy farms closed in the last decade. We also cover that on The New World next week. Using local organic co-ops to defeat the globalists. That's on foodworldorder.com. We also, of course, have the latest from groundzeromedia.org, Systemic Failure, A Heartbeat Away. We have the latest from CorberReport.com, Signs, Symbols, and Sigils. Fantastic episode, great interview with Freeman Fly, getting into the occult significance of our sacred corporate symbolism. The aforementioned latest New World Next Week episode, as I said, we do have it up now on blip.tv, newworldnextweek.blip.tv. You can get the high-quality episodes there. We're still tweaking it, still working it out, but it's all in an effort to just make more redundant and spread this information. Quickly now, we'll reference the creepy customers coming to Media Monarchy in the past week. Paramount Pictures out of Los Angeles, California. They're reading the last year's story about Marines embedded at Los Angeles Coroner's Office. We had the headquarters of the USAISC out of Fort Riley, Kansas, the Department of Homeland Security out of Silver Spring, Maryland. They were reading about Abraham Bolden, the ex-Secret Service agent, revealing the JFK assassination plot that was in Chicago, pre-Dallas. And lastly, the Michigan Legislative Council out of Lansing, Michigan, marijuana busts where the money is for the police. My friends, that's it. Episode 178, July 16th, 2010, MediaMonarchy.com. My name's James Evan Pilato. I'm your host and webmaster of the site and show, reminding you, as always, get active or get radioactive. Take care.
MediaMonarchy.com is your source for alternative news, politics, conspiracies, and cover-ups. Featuring weekly radio shows on the Portland Radio Authority, PRAradio.org, the New World Next Week video series with CorbettReport.com, plus special interview episodes, B-sides, mixtapes, and so much more. Send news tips to MediaMonarchy@gmail.com.